Hello, my name is Michelle Chula-Lipkin. I am the Executive Director of the National Association for Media Literacy Education. I want to welcome you all to the 2024 NAMLE Award Ceremony. I'm incredibly excited to be with you tonight to celebrate so many people in our community doing amazing things. For those of you who have been part of our community for many years, you may have noticed that this year we moved this ceremony to be part of Media Literacy Week, rather than as the opening to our summer professional development conference. This change, we hope, reflects our mission to make Media Literacy Week a key moment for the media literacy community and an opportunity to highlight incredible work and individuals across the country at a time when we get the most visibility for this work. This year, we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of US Media Literacy Week, and I am super, super proud of this milestone and how Media Literacy Week has grown over the last decade. For those of you who don't know, NAMLE works every day to ensure media literacy is highly valued and widely practiced as an essential life skill. NAMLE works to amplify the work of our 8,000 plus members and our 65 plus organizational partners as a resource, a convener, and a leading voice. At the core of our work is community and network building. Our membership is a diverse group that comes to media literacy education in many different ways. We have educators and researchers, librarians, community-based organizations, students, advocates, media makers. We have been dedicated to advancing media literacy education since 1997, long before media was social and ubiquitous use of AI was still a science fiction fantasy. One thing has not changed over the past 3 decades, and that is the commitment to media literacy. We spend our days thinking about what impact media and technology have on us as human beings and what skills we need to navigate this world successfully. And what we know is we all need media literacy skills. I am not exaggerating when I say I believe the future depends on our ability to understand and navigate the mediated world. We are so excited tonight to celebrate the work of individuals whose commitments to media literacy and their work has made a huge difference. So over the next 90 minutes, you will have a chance to meet our incredible 2024 award winners. We will give out 9 awards tonight for individual achievement and also for media literate content. Each year, we present 3 Media Literate Media Awards, which recognize media that has raised the visibility of media literacy, helped citizens better understand media literacy, and advance these skills through their content. And each Media Literate Media Award will come with a brief Q&A. Okay. So without further delay, the first award of the evening is the Media Literacy Community Award. This award honors those who are making significant contributions to their community through their time, actions, and dedication to media literacy education. Nominees exemplify a spirit of generosity and collaboration in their role as community leaders. This year's award is going to Laura Donnelly, founder of Latinitas. Please join me in welcoming her colleague, Larissa Davila, to the stage to present this award.
Thank you so much for having me here. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Larissa Davila, and I am the Executive Director of the Latino Arts, Culture, and Education Organization. Today, I am honored to introduce to you a woman that has been a friend and a role model to me for many, many years. Laura Donnelly is a journalist, a book publicist, a filmmaker, and she's the radical founder of the STEM nonprofit for Latinitas. With her organization, she introduced Latinas and other girls of color to JavaScript, CSS, HTML, robotics, and digital media production. She has been recognized for her role in empowering young Latinas as a 2010 winner of the Austin Under 40 Awards, the YMCA of Austin Woman of the Year, Leader of Promise, Austin Innotech Woman of the Year, and nationally as Hispanicized Positive Impact Award in 2025. Her program grew from scratch and serving hundreds of little girls and Latinitas to thousands annually and attracted culturally reflective programs executives and board leadership and volunteers. Latinitas clubs and camps and conferences served over 42,000 girls and teens while she was part of the organization. And she extended to not only Austin, Texas, but El Paso, San Antonio, San Francisco, and over 25 states, including the country of Colombia, Costa Rica, Venezuela, Nigeria, and the Philippines. The organization that she created went to a budget that cusped over $2 million annually. In my personal experience, I have benefited from Laura's work in different capacities. In 2013, Laura and her team participated with me for the 1 billion rising strike at the Texas Capitol, where we gathered more than 300 women to demand equal rights for women. My sister passed away in 2015. She was a victim of domestic violence. That year, Laura and her team gave 2 scholarships to my 10-year-old niece so that she could take classes and camps at Latinitas. I always wonder if Latinistas had existed in my hometown and my sister and I had access to a program like hers. I wonder if our story would have been different. I wonder if I would have had, if my journey to adulthood wouldn't have been as hard as it was. Since then, since I have met her, I have also been a part of her organization. As a business coach, I have been a volunteer in several capacities at Latinitas, as an instructor, as a supporter, and most recently, with Laura's transition out of Latinitas, she was my executive coach for about a year to help me develop in my position as executive director. Unfortunately, I was a little older when she launched Latinitas, but I consider myself a Latinota and I still benefited from Laura's everlasting passion to help. Today, I feel honored to introduce Laura Donnelly, and congratulations on your award.
Oh my God. Well, first I want to thank Larissa Davila for sharing, my introduction. I'm super grateful for an honor that, the National Association of Media Literacy educators are providing, spotlighting folks like myself that are doing this work. Media literacy is going to change the world. It's going to save the world. And I want to just real quickly, a discussion on media literacy in a class launched the whole Latinitas experience. We were learning about the representation of Latinos specifically, but just also how's gender reflected, how all identity is reflected through the media lens. And for that one discussion to start something that grew into something so big, where not only girls, got to be at the helm of media production, they also got that critical lens. They got that, that filter that's so necessary now. That is just, I watched it over and over again be the source of their confidence. And there's 50,000, at this point, Latinitas out there that are continuing this, evangelizing media literacy in order to, support and play like real and accurate and positive images of their identity and the identities of other cultures that they're surrounded by. So I'm just super grateful. I'm amongst great peers, and thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much for your incredible work, Laura. We're so glad we could honor you tonight. Thank you for being here. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Dan Krutka, the Education Advisor to NAMLE, who will introduce our Research Award winner. This award recognizes a researcher whose work is advancing the field of media literacy by providing resources and facilitating the work of the media literacy education community.
Thank you, Michelle. It's my distinct honor to present this next award to Phil Nichols, Associate Professor of English Education at Baylor University. Dr. Nichols has been teaching, researching, and reshaping the landscape of media literacy education for more than 15 years. His research explores how media technologies condition the ways we practice, teach, and talk about literacy and the implications of this conditioning for equitable public education. He has sought to apply these insights to spheres of educational practice where it is not commonly foregrounded, notably educational policy studies. Dr. Nichols' path-breaking scholarship on the platformization of education examines how networked platforms increasingly intermediate even the most mundane aspects of administration, instruction, and learning, and what this means for educational equity. In addition to convening a special issue of the Harvard Educational Review on platform studies in education to explore this topic, Dr. Nichols has specifically linked such conversations to English language arts classrooms, including a co-authored NCTE policy brief on media literacy. He also has a myriad of practice-oriented articles which clarify the classroom-level implications of his research. His book, Building the Innovation School, Infrastructures for Equity in Today's Classrooms, is also actively used by district school and classroom practitioners to support professional learning and decision-making related to the integration of media technologies in education. If you'd like to read his book, the Civics of Technology community is holding a book club on it in the spring. Moreover, his research across disciplinary and research practice divides is evidence of his commitment to reframing media literacy from something primarily studied in or taught to young people to something integrated into all levels of our educational systems. From the ways we set technology policies in districts, to the ways we integrate technologies into instruction, to the conversations we have about technology with students. And without further ado, please join me in congratulating Dr. Nichols.
Thank you so much, Dan. It is always a huge honor to have one's work recognized. But this award is especially meaningful for me just because of how integral NAMLE has been in my own development. From being a classroom, a middle school English teacher many, many years ago into my current research work. This organization has been and continues to be just a tremendous resource for co-articulating the importance of media education research and practice. And so it really means the world to me for this selection committee to recognize in my own scholarship a similar commitment. I want to thank Dan for that introduction. I want to thank the organization. The selection committee. I want to thank Amy Storniolo, who nominated me for the award. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also thank the students, the teachers, the administrators that I partner with in my work, and from whom I've learned so much and continue to learn about what it means to make research relevant for practice. Just thank you so much. This is a huge honor.
Thank you, Phil. It was that was beautiful, and just I'm so honored to hear your thoughts on NAMLE, and we really try to be there for our community, and the idea that we're doing that is something we're very proud of. So thank you so much for your work and for everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, here we are introducing our first Media Literate Media Award. So I'm excited to introduce one of our NAMLE board members. Dan Roan is joining us to introduce this first Media Literate Media Award of the evening. Dan served as the awards committee chair this year again, and we are so appreciative for his work and dedication to this organization. We are just so excited that you're here as always, and we always love that you bring the extra love, the extra oomph that is needed by all presenters. Thank you so much. I will let you take it from here.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Well, today I am pleased to, on Create Day, to present the Media Literate Media Award to the Teens Media Network. Teens Media Network is a global media and education hub advancing creative collaboration among youth worldwide. Media literacy is a worldwide issue, even though we're a national organization. Operating in Spain, Latin America, and the United States, the Teen Media Network connects young people on a unified platform to foster creativity involving over 1,000 youth, with more than 100 working regularly to create content for the network. Since 2021, TMN has immersed young individuals in multimedia storytelling focused on music concerts and festivals, such as South by Southwest and Primavera Sound, and teen-produced shows. Collaborating with mentors, TMN empowers youth and leverages digital technologies to help them become the next generation of music storytellers using photography, videography, and written content. We're going to show a short video to see them in action.
Vamos a hablar con dos de los fotógrafos que están con nosotros en Teens Media Network. Estamos con
Paul Rodríguez. Aina Pascual.
Bueno, ¿qué nos podéis contar de cómo estáis viviendo el Cruïlla como fotógrafos?
Es el tercer festival que cubro con Teens Media Network y la verdad es que es súper cómodo, como siempre, haciendo lo que me gusta y disfrutando un montón.
Es mi primera vez en el Cruïlla, pero no en un festival y es bastante guay, la verdad.
¿Y cómo estáis viviendo un poco la presión de un festival tan grande, artistas grandes?
Yo es que disfruto mucho con todos, me da igual la música que sea, simplemente quiero expresar lo que quieren expresar ellos.
Yo me lo estoy pasando como una niña. Estoy en el pozo bailando y cantando, pero me lo paso muy bien.
¿Qué consejo le daríais a alguien que quizás quiere iniciarse en el mundo de la fotografía de conciertos y no sabe cómo empezar?
Simplemente hacer y también hablar con TMN y que se comunique con ellos, así pueden empezar muy bien.
Es echarle cara, echarle morro.
¿Cómo estáis llevando la experiencia de trabajar con TMM?
Pues muy chula, la verdad, pero tú también estás trabajando con ellos, ¿no? ¿Tú qué tal?
Yo lo estoy viviendo muy bien, creo que es una increíble oportunidad para todos los jóvenes. Hemos creado una comunidad donde todo el mundo es bien recibido, donde la experiencia realmente no es lo importante porque te acompañamos en esos primeros pasos. Creo que es una experiencia increíble. De verdad siento que el festival está siendo una ocasión para salir un poco de esa zona de confort donde estaba, para que el trabajo de periodismo no sea solo un trabajo de escritorio, sino que sea acción, que sea venir aquí, ver el festival, sentirlo y expresar esta experiencia para todos vosotros.
Okay. So the Teen Media Network is at the forefront of providing real-world learning experiences and revolutionizing the future of media and education. Congratulations to the Teen Media Network. And please join me in welcoming the Teen Media Network founder, Pablo Herrera, to the stage to share more about their work.
Thank you so much, Dan, and thank you so much to NAMLE for this incredible award. It is extremely important that for the last couple of years, we've been working on this tirelessly, recruiting young people from all over the world, in Europe, in Latin America, here in the United States, to join us in this adventure to create people always tell me, don't say that is the first, because the first network never, nothing is the first thing for the first time, but there is not existent mainstream media dedicated to youth, right? The last that I remember is MTV, and we are creating this for young people to not only learn and develop critical thinking skills with the tools that they are already using every day, but also have fun when they do it, right? Go to a music festival, cover a music festival, talk with musicians, talk with the techniques, and all the people that put the stages, right? For all the people, for all the musicians to create these amazing festivals, and also a film that we are working covering film festivals. It's all the cultural entertainment and pop culture that young people love, and they don't have many times the possibility to go into and to share those things, right? Because in schools, as everyone knows, sometimes, many times, entertainment is just, somehow is not valuable for education, right? And I think that we have to pay attention to what young people want, and they want concert, music, film festivals, and have fun. So thank you so much, because this is a recognition for all the over 100 young people that is creating content for the network right now, and they are super happy for having this award. So thank you so much.
Very cool, very cool. Well, before I start with the question, I have a couple questions for you, but before I start, I just want to point out that your organization highlights a commitment to kindness, trust, and respect, which I love. That's not a question. I just love it. I want everybody to know. that as you and your organization are teaching these kids how to, teaching them media literacy through creating content based on the music and the activities they love, you are doing it from a perspective of kindness, trust, and respect, which we need more of. So thank you for that. Well, my first question for you, I love the career approach to the training and mentorship that you are providing. So how does that inform the way you work with the kids that differs from a more academic approach?
Yeah, as the video that we just saw, I know that there were some technical issues with the video. I put just the link on the chat. As they say, right? I mean, even people that go to the journalism school, they may be formed in in a desk work, right? And going to the real world learning experience and develop their skills by making mistakes, and also, be cheered for making the mistakes and understand that is part of the process and don't be punished for that. I think that is an incredible experience for everyone. And, it's like I came here and I learn English in the field, right? In the real world learning experience. You learn faster when you made the mistakes and you expose yourself to do the things, right? And also because it's for self-esteem of young people, it's incredible. It's an incredible opportunity for them to expose in front of the camera for the other things, or otherwise that they may use the technology that they already have in their hands in a wrong way, right? Bullying other people or whatever. When they say, hey, listen, there is a concert happening there in the corner. Why don't we go and take some picture of these musicians, take some picture and ask the technicians that I'm working and creating and show how is to make this show, how can we do our show or whatever, right? So I think it is an incredible opportunity to foster not only critical thinking, but creativity in general with hand-on experiences.
Very cool. Okay, so for my next question, you actually answered my second question, so I'm going to
okay.
skip to my third question. It was great. It was excellent. You worked with the Barcelona City Council.
Yes.
And you developed youth programs there, which I find fascinating because you basically went from kind of film school to government to this, right? So how did your government experience motivate you to fuse kind of civil engagement and community connection in your work? Like, how do those go hand in hand?
Yeah, well, here there is a little bit of story on all of this. I grew up in Argentina, which is one of the only countries in the world that have university college 100% free for young people. And I was lucky because otherwise I couldn't have the possibility to go. My parents didn't have the money to pay for a degree. I believe that education is more than a career. Education is just get formed and get that critical thinking skills that we desperately need to, don't see the things that are happening right now in the political sphere, for example, on the confrontation between just common citizens. I think that having access to a quality education is paramount. And I think that Europe, I hate to say this, but Europe do a better job on that. And the city of Barcelona, they have amazing programs to support young people, right? And the engagement of young people, and I see that different, the engagement of young people in Spain, a difference with the engagement of young people here in the United States, it is absolutely different. Here you will see the guys much more focused on their careers, and I do this because my career and my title, etc., etc. And in Spain, let's do this for fun. So there are two separate levels that I think that mental health, that is a problem so big here in the United States, is part of that desperation that put the pressure on the young people that they have to solve what they want to do with their life, and expensive schools and unnecessary competitiveness, right? And then the punishment for doing the things in the wrong way, right? So I think that having access to good quality education provided by government agencies, also in making this program affordable, right? Is something that is absolutely paramount. And don't forget, just the last thing with this, remember that the Brooklyn College in New York used to be 100% free, right?
Yes.
It wasn't until the 70s, end of the 70s, 80s, that they privatized everything. I think that we have to go to that model, hopefully, right? Let's see what happens.
Very cool. Well, once again, you answered my next question with this answer as well. So I just want to say thank you so much. And congratulations again on your award. Amazing work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pablo, and thank you, Dan, for being here and for chairing the awards committee. So proud of the work that all of you did this year. Thank you so much. Okay. We are here now for our 2 teacher awards. We're gonna turn our attention to these important individuals. So these awards are given each year to educators integrating a strong media literacy curriculum in both pre-K-12 and in higher education. So nominees from those 2 areas, pre-K-12 and higher education, were evaluated separately, and we are giving an award to both a pre-K-12 educator and a higher education teacher. So I am going to introduce Nick Ostrom from Wisconsin Public Media. Thank you so much, Nick, for being here to present this year's pre-K-12 Teacher Award.
Hi, everyone. So I'm really proud to introduce this year's recipient of the Pre-K through 12 Teacher Award. Dana Pike is the Library Media Specialist for the Columbus School District in Columbus, Wisconsin. She works with every grade level from kindergarten through 12th grade, working with over 1,200 students a year. She has a real focus on integrating technology into instruction and providing professional learning to her colleagues. And her passion for media literacy has really been an inspiration, especially her emphasis on making media with young learners. In her district, she provides hands-on experience with video production to 7th graders, and she guides her students through the entire media production process. Her teaching of media production fosters creativity, teamwork, and an understanding of the concepts involved in the creation of engaging visual content. So congratulations, Dana.
Thank you so much to Nick and PBS Wisconsin, and of course to NAMLE for this incredible honor. I'm truly humbled to be recognized alongside so many passionate advocates for media literacy. This award is a reflection of not just my work, but the hard work of the students, teachers, and librarians that I've been fortunate to collaborate with every day. In today's world, media literacy is more important than ever. Our students are growing up in a sea of information, and it's our responsibility to help them navigate that sea with critical thinking, curiosity, and integrity. I've always believed that the library is the heart of this effort, a space for exploration, questioning, and creativity. I'm especially proud of the World in Motion lesson in particular, which allowed students to explore their identities and perspectives through media. It's a reminder that when we give students the tools to let them tell their stories, that we empower them to shape the world around them. I want to thank my fellow library media specialists and educators for their unwavering support, my students for inspiring me every day, and of course, NAMLE for championing this vital work. This is just the beginning, and I'm excited for what's to come as we continue to shape informed, thoughtful, and media literate citizens. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dana. It's always this teacher award that brings tears to my eyes every year. Thank you for being incredible. I'm so happy that we got to award you this teacher award this year. I'm sure all your students are super lucky to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Well, it is now my pleasure to introduce NAMLE board member Christy Roschke to the stage to present the Teacher Award for Higher Education to a very close colleague and friend. Christy, I will leave it up to you.
Thanks, Michelle. It is a true honor and treat to present this award to my friend and collaborator, Celeste Sepsi, who is an assistant teaching professor at the Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University. Celeste has made a big mark on media literacy education in a variety of ways. She's been instrumental in designing the country's first bachelor's degree in digital media literacy. She's taught several of those classes in that degree offering as well. She's helped develop media literacy programming for Arizona PBS and created a series of popular massive open online courses in media literacy that have had thousands of participants in the last several years. She's mentored students researching media literacy and related topics, and she's delivered presentations on all kinds of media literacy topics to students all over the country and internationally. But perhaps most importantly, every day she's teaching aspiring journalists how to engage with their audiences in new ways to build trust and reimagine journalism as a true community service. She is so passionate about teaching and helping her students become thoughtful, credible, and ethical media consumers and creators, which is why every one of her students says she's just the best. Celeste is not one to call attention to herself, which is why I'm especially glad she's receiving this award, but she is leaving an enduring mark on her students, colleagues, school, and media literacy education.
Thank you, Dr. Roschke. It's been a real honor for me to bring media literacy into my classroom at Arizona State University. I think all teachers can agree that my students want to not only change the journalism industry, but quite frankly, change the world. And I leave my classrooms every day knowing that I've done just a little part to help them do that. I'd love to thank NAMLE for being such an important partner to both ASU and the Cronkite School, and honestly for impacting so much of my work in my classroom. And of course, I've always appreciated the support of my school and university in prioritizing this critical work. I would be remiss not to say a big shout out thank you to Dr. Roschke. Also, I've never called her Dr. Roschke once in my life, so that's a first for y'all. Christy hired me 6 years ago, but she quickly turned into both a mentor and a best friend. And it's been amazing to learn from you and to have someone who's always in my corner, challenging me to do better. And not to mention, you introduced me to NAMLE, so thanks for that. My goal at the end of the day is to empower my students, whether they're journalists or not, to really participate in and better serve their communities. And it's critical that they understand media's role in that. So thank you all so much. It's been an honor to join you at this ceremony. I appreciate it.
That is a great screenshot. Thank you so much, Celeste. Thank you for being here. I like the sound of Dr. Roschke. It's very lovely. I'm going to start calling her that. Keep up the good work. You're awesome. So great to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are moving to the next Media Literate Media Award. And it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kimberly Moffitt, who is the president of NAMLE's Board of Directors, to present the next Media Literate Media Award. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for being here. And I will let you do the intro to this next award.
Thanks a bunch, Michelle. It is my pleasure to be here today with all of you, and it has certainly been an honor to serve as the president of NAMLE's board for this past year. And certainly I'm looking forward to continuing to advance our important mission of elevating media literacy education. I am thrilled to be presenting our next Media Literate Media Award to Sue Ding, director of The Makeover Movie. Makeover Movie is a pop cultural essay film on the makeover movies we grew up loving or not loving, and all the ways they taught us what we needed to fix about ourselves. Featuring clips of over 100 films, Makeover Movie immerses us in the candy-colored and kinetic world of the makeover montage. Alongside these iconic images, women of color and queer women reflect on the racialized, heteronormative, and contradictory beauty standards at the core of the movie Makeover. We're going to watch a few minutes of the film just to give you a taste of what Sue has created for us.
My teenage years were a confusing time. The early 2000s felt like an endless cycle of acne, orthodontics appointments, and crippling self-consciousness. To cope, I devoured advice from magazines about how to make myself over. It felt like every movie had a makeover too, and it was always my favorite part. I still remember them vividly. Was I the only one? So I'm working on a film about movie makeover montages. I'm curious, when you think about makeovers in movies, what do you think of?
The first thing that always comes to mind for me is Clueless.
The Devil Wears Prada.
The red dress from She's All That.
It's like the instant gratification.
They make it seem so glamorous.
Back then, it was like a secret longing and like hope. You know, if I do all these things, I can change.
I still think that. All right, I want to show you guys what I have so far. We can pause whenever and feel free to comment as you watch. I'm going to press play. Is everyone ready?
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, ready.
Growing up, I loved makeover movies. The dizzying salon transformations, the triumphant reveals, and the stunned love interests. It was also sparkly and intoxicating. Coming from an immigrant family, these films were a step-by-step guide, not just to how to be a woman, but also how to be American. And they promised that no matter how awkward I looked or felt, a new and improved me was right around the corner. Of course, looking back now, it wasn't just anyone who could be made over. Almost all the women we see getting makeovers are skinny, brunette, and white. And that's been true for almost 100 years of film.
Wait, can we pause? I'm curious, did you find any women of color in these scenes?
There are a couple makeovers of color, is the academic term. But for the most part, they're sidekicks, which is also the case for queer characters. It's so strange looking back. I almost never saw myself in these films, but I was definitely paying.
Think we lost Kimberly there. There you are. Great.
Sorry, took a
That's
minute.
okay. That's okay.
For it to kick back in. I would really love to invite Sue Ding to accept her Media Literate Media Award.
Hi. Thank you so much. Makeover Movie was a real labor of love and passion project. And so it's so wonderful to have it recognized in this way and to be recognized alongside so many amazing advocates for media literacy. I want to shout out my friends that I interviewed for the film, whose insights were invaluable throughout the process, as well as my collaborators, Josh Lim, who composed the fantastic soundtrack, Brian Berger, who did the sound mix, and Jason Chen, who helped craft the edit in crucial ways. As a second generation immigrant and pop culture obsessive, I'm very conscious of the power of popular media and the importance of media literacy. I grew up really steeped in pop culture and all of its messages about race, beauty, gender, consumerism. And that eventually drew me to an interest in storytelling, about storytelling, how we shape our identity through narrative, who has the power to create narratives, and how we can shape new narratives. So I hope my work gives people a greater sense of agency with regard to media imagery. And in Makeover Movie, it was very important for me to give women, particularly women of color and queer women, the last word and the chance to critique these films and inscribe their experiences back onto the films. Media literacy is, important for so many reasons. And I think one that sometimes gets overlooked is how generative it can be and how it can inspire us to remix media into exciting new work. So as a media maker and as a media consumer, thank you so much to NAMLE, and thank you for all that you do to champion media literacy.
Sue, congratulations. This was well deserved. I will tell you that from the moment you started talking about braces and orthodontic appointments, I was in. I was sucked in, and I said, I've got to see more. So I appreciate it. But then you went on and talked about hair. You talked about the body image issues. And yes, to your point, I absolutely loved that you gave space to center particular voices that oftentimes get left out of all of these types of films. And so thank you for doing this in such a fun, creative, and innovative way, and making it accessible to so many different audiences. And I will say that we knew way back in 2020 when you were here for Media Literacy Week, that your film, The Claudia Kishi Club, that this was going to just be the beginning of so much of the work that you've done that really resonates well with, I think, the current generation, but then even touches those of us who are raising the current generation. So thank you so much for what you have done. But can you talk a little bit about your approach, especially to this particular topic of representation, and how you balance that importance with your creativity?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is always a balance because I think, I absolutely want to bring a critical lens to things, but not be too didactic because,
Right,
I
right.
still love these movies. And, if it was just something where I wanted to say like, this is bad, I wouldn't have spent so much time, it was fun to look at these movies and kind of analyze them and spend time with this footage. I think, I'm interested in critiquing work, but also understanding why it's compelling, right? It's understanding why it's pleasurable and seductive and yeah, juggling that. And so I think in this film, it was really important to me to make those critiques, but also have it be a fun experience because, that's the experience of taking in the films, right? To be like, interesting that they did that. But then
Right.
also be like, oh,
Right.
I love it. So I wanted to have that balance. And yeah, I think having the voices of my friends was really important too, to show a wider range of experiences and also just, not to have it be didactic of just my voice being like, in this scene, this happens. And so it was a very iterative process where I created like a first cut and played it for a group of friends. And then I recorded our conversation over Zoom and then added in some of their dialogue. And then I played that version for a different group of friends and did the same thing and recorded some of their reactions. And so it was like everyone speaking to each other in these different ways, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah. And that leads me right into my next question, where because you do such a good job of bringing in other female voices to hear their reactions to the films, but also their personal lived experiences, I'm really curious why you decided to involve your friends, and why was it important to make sure you had these other voices represented in the film?
Yeah, I mean, I always think I'm always looking for ways to make the film process more collaborative because I think, bringing in other voices always just makes it a richer process and makes it more fun, to be able to talk about these things and share our different experiences and learn from each other. And so I think, I definitely wanted to speak to different experiences that I didn't have, but I also, just wanted to have that sort of creative collaboration, to literally, I would just play clips for my friends and be like, is this weird? Like, like, what do you think about this? And, it turned into these sort of like group therapy sessions where people are like, oh my God, like, I didn't realize how much these clips affected me or, and people would kind of bounce ideas off of each other and share those things. And so I think, um, I'm always looking to create that conversation because I think it's like the film itself is one thing, but then hopefully it can have a greater life in terms of the conversations and interactions it can inspire beyond the film itself.
Yeah, in my own work, I always focus on representation, and we talk about the expression of representation matters, right? And it looks like, even if that was not where you started, that's clearly what you were trying to convey in the film by bringing in so many of these different film clips. I mean, it was a wide range of film clips that showed us very clearly who was being left out, whose voice wasn't considered, who wasn't being thought of as beautiful or worthy of makeover. And I just love how you pull that off so well. But from a filmmaker's perspective, what was your goal in trying to bring so many different pop culture moments together?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wanted to show kind of the pervasiveness of these tropes. It's literally a century of cinema. It goes from
Right.
1920 is silent film is the earliest clip, right? Until, kind of contemporary clips to show that, I think the idea of transformation is one that's evergreen, right? And it has always held appeal, even back to before film, the idea of Cinderella, right? And all the different
Right.
variations on that story. But then also showing, you know, yeah, just showing not only the breadth in terms of the time, like how pervasive it's been, but also the repeated images, right? I think seeing a clip one time or seeing one movie that tells you, oh, this is the kind of person that succeeds in our world, or this is the kind of person that's beautiful, or this is what you're supposed to do to be beautiful is one thing. But when you're seeing it in so many movies across the decades, and, in my personal experience, it wasn't just movies, right? It was magazines were always, make yourself over for prom, make yourself over for the first day of school. It's that repeated exposure to this is the way that you will, succeed in the world. This is the way that you will be happy. And just having that kind of exposure across so many different films and so many different mediums and time periods and all of that.
I know we have to close, but I do want to hear, how has the response been for the film? I mean, because I'm sure, again, as a Gen Xer, it resonated with me. So I suspect it has resonated with all of us, but I am curious, like, what's been the response to the film?
Yeah, it's been a really fun one to share. I mean, I think a lot of people have really personal reactions to the film, right? Of like, oh, I love these movies, but also like, yikes, And I
Love,
think,
hate, for sure.
yeah. And I think because it is across such a big time period, whatever generation you're in, there are some hallmarks or some media, that you recognize or that some people will recognize. And so it's been really nice. I mean, honestly, it's kind of been a little bit of that like continued group therapy of everyone being like, like, oh my God, we've all been through this, but also, it has been generative and thinking about like, I think it has started some conversations about, well, what else would we like to see? Or has this improved for the better? Or how can it improve for the better?
Yeah. Well,
And before I go,
congrats
I forgot
again.
to hold it up, but thank you for the award.
Yes. Congrats again. And thank you so much for the work and for helping us to continue the conversation and the group therapy.
Yeah, Sue, I love the film so much. I'm so glad. Like I've shown it to so many people because as Kimberly says, oh my gosh, it resonates so clearly. But I even made like my husband watch it. I'm like, you have to see this. Can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We're gonna turn now to our youth award. This award recognizes a middle or high school student who exemplifies media literacy in action. Their work and activities have showcased their ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using multiple forms of communication. And nominees exemplify leadership qualities and a passion for media literacy education. And this year's winner, Karina Yu, is a student at California School of the Arts, SGV, and the founder of a group called Empowering Youth Literacy. Unfortunately, Karina couldn't be with us live this evening, but we wanted to make sure we all had a chance to celebrate her achievement. It's essential we elevate youth voices in our work, so I wanted to share a little bit more about her. So Karina started a program empowering youth literacy and found partnerships within LA County to teach media literacy to elementary and middle school students and expand this knowledge by making a website that featured free resources for all to access. And Karina was able to impact over 200 elementary and middle school students through her program and over 1,000 people through her website and her org, with expansion to about 3 counties. She was also able to sustain her passion by teaching others how to lead workshops and linking it to her school's journalism club, where they can continue to impact kids. So on behalf of everyone at NAMLE, we want to congratulate Karina for all her work. So we have two more awards to give out tonight, and I would like to introduce Faith Vogro, who is the founding president of our organization. She's also an independent scholar and the media literacy education maven at insiderseducation.com. She's here to give a very special award to a very special person. Thanks for being here, Faith. Take it from here.
Good evening. I'm so excited to introduce this year's Elizabeth Toman Award winner and founding NAMLE board member, Dr. Cindy Scheib, friend, colleague, collaborator, and co-author. Cindy Scheib thrives on working collaboratively, but more often than not is willing to let others take the limelight, which can overshadow her contributions. But know this, Project Look Sharp and all of its fantastic resources, or the books she's co-authored, one with me and one with Chris Sperry, wouldn't exist without her phenomenal energy and investment of thousands of hours working behind the scenes, far more than anything she was ever paid to do. If it's essential to your practice to integrate media literacy inquiry into existing core curriculum, or use NAMLE's core principles and the accompanying grid of key question categories, or you use those categories to help students reflect on their choices when they create media and not just analyze other people's media, or you teach students to analyze cereal boxes by looking for clues that indicate the product's sugar or fruit content, you owe a debt of gratitude, at least in part, to Cindy Scheib. One of the things that I've always appreciated most about Cindy is her dedication to student-centered teaching. That's not always the case in higher ed. As a professor and developmental psychologist whose early research focused on children and television, she could have easily been content to be the typical sage on the stage delivering engaging lectures on media effects. And I'm guessing that's exactly what her department expected. But instead, she paid a lot of attention to how students learn and gradually transformed her teaching from engaging lectures into classes filled with inquiry-based problem solving. And then she went on to help others learn how to do that, to launch their own journeys to creating inquiry-filled learning spaces. And as a result, hundreds and hundreds of educators have transformed their own teaching, and the tens of thousands of students they reach have developed critical thinking skills that extend well beyond core media literacy competencies. She's pushed professional boundaries, creating a media literacy minor at Ithaca College, and more recently, an online course, especially for librarians, to be centers of media literacy in their schools. She's pushed national boundaries around the world, helping other people in other countries, educators in other countries, introduce media literacy into what they do, always using culturally responsive practices, not just imposing what she does here and saying, oh, that'll just work anywhere. And throughout it all, her good heart always shines through, finding a way to be open and kind, even to colleagues with whom she disagrees. It's the opposite of that academic territorial thing, always looking to expand the community of media literacy educators and advocates. So with condolences on the Mets not making the World Series and admiration on behalf of the thousands you have influenced, congratulations, you've earned it.
Thank you so much, Faith, and such a wonderful award. Thank you so much to NAMLE. So to Faith, my colleague, my friend, my co-author, you got me into this 30 years ago, and neither of us have looked back. So, and also thank you to NAMLE for not just this award, but for all of the support, incredible commitment to this field. For those of us who have been at this a long time, us old folks, we didn't think this would happen in our lifetime, but it has. Such an honor to be receiving this award with this amazing group of media literacy practitioners. Just remarkable to see what everybody is doing. And it's especially meaningful for me to get this award named after Liz Toman. For those of us who were lucky enough to know her, she was just such a remarkable woman, is really the spirit behind I think almost everything that we do as media literacy folks. And not only were she and I founding board members of NAMLE, but my daughter and I got to stay with her in her apartment in LA, where she taught us the card game 13 that we still play. And she stayed with us here in Ithaca. So I owe a great deal of my spirit and my commitment and service to this field to Liz. And finally, my deep gratitude to my colleague and friend, Chris Sperry, who is my co-director at Project Look Sharp. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Chris. He is the heart and the brains and the soul of everything that we do at Project Look Sharp. And it's his voice, I think, that more than anyone else's will carry this work into the future. So thank you, everyone. It's just a privilege to be here with you all today.
Thank you, Cindy. It's so great to see you. And, you know, Faith's word echoed to all of us that have been doing this work. We would not be here without you. And that is absolutely the truth. So thank you for everything. Okay, here we go. We are now going to bring back our education advisor, Dan Krutka, for the final Media Literate Media Award of the evening. We are both super excited about this because we've been talking about Renee DiResta's book for a while at NAMLE. So Dan, take it away.
It is my pleasure to introduce our final Media Literate Media Award of the evening to Renee DiResta for her acclaimed new book, Invisible Rulers: The People Who Turn Lies into Reality. Ms. DiResta is a researcher, writer, and professor who, as she says on her own site, studies adversarial abuse online, the ways that people attempt to manipulate, harass, or target others within the constantly evolving landscape of digital platforms. I first came across Ms. DiResta's work years ago when she began studying and sharing research on the Russian Internet Research Agency's efforts to manipulate American society dating back to 2014, which gained a lot of publicity due to the IRA's role in the 2016 election. As an educator, I immediately began sharing her findings with fellow educators, often saying, we have to teach students about this. This is important. In her book, Ms. DiResta delves into how influencers, algorithms, and online crowds undermine institutions and shape public opinion. Combining history analysis and memoir, she explores topics like the psychology of rumor and propaganda, the rise of online conspiracy and harassment, including harassment she faced from online mobs and high-ranking politicians, and the ethical role of algorithms in content distribution. She highlights how influencers manipulate public discourse and how research has been politicized in the fight against misinformation. Ultimately, Ms. DiResta portrays a world in which truth is under siege and explains the forces waging this war. We are incredibly honored to welcome Renee DiResta to the stage to accept this award.
Thank you so much. My award has toddler fingerprints on it. I tried very hard to keep it clean and in a high place, but they get into things. So I want to say thank you so much for this wonderful honor. I'm deeply grateful that my book was recognized by an organization that does such vital work in promoting media literacy at a time when it's more necessary than ever. Media literacy is really the foundation for an informed and thoughtful public, by extension, a healthy democracy, and empowering people to critically engage with the information around them, to question what they see and hear. That's so core to both what I try to do in the book and what media literacy as a field is doing. I think it's important to note that it's facing some of the challenges that the disinformation research field has faced, right? The kind of efforts to recast it as brainwashing or teaching people to only read approved narratives. And I think that that means, as the work comes under attack like that, it's more critical than ever to really restate the value of it, and for the community to proactively communicate the importance of giving people tools to understand the information environment clearly and independently. So I just want to recognize the support from all the editors, fact checkers, friends who read the book, and then my husband for getting it over the finish line. And thank you again to NAMLE for this award, and to the entire community for everyone's tireless dedication to media literacy as we keep pushing forward together. Thank you.
So thank you so much. And, I'm one of those people who've read your book not only once, but I was reading it, of course, again to as in anticipation of this. And it's so I recommend anyone who hasn't read it. It's just it reads just it's really easy to read through it. You learn so much along the way. It shifts between an academic discourse and personal storytelling, and so it's a really readable book, and it's really well done. And I'm honored to ask you a few questions now, and I've even been told we have a few extra minutes. So,
awesome.
So don't feel rushed in your answers at all here. So as you know, NAMLE's aim is to advance media literacy education. And toward the end of your book, you discuss remedies to disinformation, such as changing the defaults on social media, offering more user control on platforms, adding more friction and context to allow for fact checking, and finally, education. And you said education is our final and perhaps most powerful lever. And the NAMLE community is particularly interested in figuring out what levers we should pull. So what type of education do you think will be most effective in the short term? Of course, we have this election coming up just in days here, right? And then also long term for our society.
Yeah, it's a great question. I spent a lot of time looking at how it was done across various moments in history, where this the sense that the information environment was kind of spiraling out of people's control, or was not what they were used to, that there had been these major critical technological shifts. And I spent a lot of time really enthralled by the Institute for Propaganda Analysis, which I really appreciated as it sought to teach propaganda literacy at a time when some of the most prominent influencers in the United States were sort of descending into fascism, right? This was a time when radio was the dominant means of communication. And what I was really struck by was that they were not actually teaching people about fact checking or about consulting alternate sources. It was a very interesting sort of approach that tried to almost break things down into teaching rhetoric, teaching tropes, teaching certain phrases and ways in which the kind of popular fascists of the time were using rhetoric and were using phrases and framing to shape narratives and concepts for audiences. And I thought this was such an interesting way of doing it. Sorry, there's a siren going by. I thought that this was such an interesting way to teach this critically important form of literacy that recognize that even if people were limited in their time, even if they didn't have access to a lot of other channels, even if they were not 100% sure of where to go to find media, they could also be instructed to understand things through these big overarching conceptual terms, and by teaching people to recognize rhetorical phrases or specific tropes, that they could actually have a pretty profound impact.
So that's really interesting. If I can follow up on that a little bit, I mean, because you think of other methods that people have used for media literacy. Of course, you kind of mentioned, right? You have almost the whack-a-mole attempts at fact checking everything constantly, which can be very difficult. But you also have ideas like pre-bunking, right? Getting ahead of it, which is a little bit more similar to that, except it's actually trying to address it. I mean, how have you seen both those strategies kind of play out?
Pre-bunking has been really interesting. There's a lot of very promising research on that I've seen, from professors like Sander van der Linden out of Oxford and other places, who have really, again, tried to focus in on, I think there's pre-bunking around narratives, there's pre-bunking around kind of repetitive stories that continuously appear. We were very interested in that. I spent a lot of time in Chapter 5 on the Election Integrity Partnership, on our work understanding elections in 2020. I feel myself like jumping up and down with frustration now in 2024, as you're seeing, prominent reporters who are very, very well-meaning do things like, they say, wow, this really seems kind of similar to what happened previously, or they identify that something is not quite misinformation, or that a prominent person has has pulled a rumor up and amplified it, but they don't necessarily have the vocabulary for that. And so I feel like we're once again playing whack-a-mole with these specific election rumors, when what I would have loved to see much more of was pre-bunking, in the sense of even media saying, hey, you're going to see stories about dead voters. You're going to see stories about bust-in voters. You're going to see stories about voting machines flipping votes magically, you know, or with space lasers or, you know, satellites or whatever doing it, just to emphasize how repetitive some of these things are, how these tropes, which we're so familiar with from movies and storytelling, find their way into our politics, and how they're used over and over and over again, even though there's actually no evidence to back up the claims in the individual rumors when they come out. And so, so I do feel like, you know, we're not 100% there. We're still kind of, we're still playing the fact checking game a little bit more than I would be happy with. But I think that there is these very promising efforts that are being validated by great social science research, and now it's more a matter of trying to figure out how to get them into that, get them into classrooms, get them into common conversations, get them into media coverage of things, so that we're not constantly being reactive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm like you, I've seen so much more of the same, you know, problems in the media. I did see PEN America had like some good articles on like 7 things you should expect to see in this election recently. So I know some people are aware of it, but how you get that out at scale is a real challenge.
Yeah, I think Kate Starbird and I wrote one in 2022. I think I don't remember if it was for PEN America or if it was Columbia Journalism Review, but we wrote it for an organization that was very focused on news, and I did feel like, okay, we need to just reshare that, just kind of get that out there again, try to reiterate the importance of that framing. I'm glad PEN America is doing it. I have to go look that one up.
I'm sorry, I'm veering from our questions a little bit, because as I'm thinking about your book, I'm trying to think about like what was successful in the past, right? When we think about the propaganda education that was taking place in your book, which was happening, I think, right in the 30s and 40s. What was successful then that we can take lessons from today?
It was really interesting. So I used the story of Father Coughlin in chapter 9, and the sort of solutions chapter, actually walking through this prominent, you know, fascist radio priest, 30 million listeners at a time when the US had about 120 million people, or a population was about 120 million. And so he had a massive following. And you saw various responses as he begins to move into, you know, just propagandizing, and you know, misinformation is such an inadequate term for him trying to say, well, Kristallnacht was really the Jews' fault, you know, these sorts of things that he begins to say on the radio. And there's horror, right, among the broadcasters who are trying to figure out what to do about this. And so they begin actually having people fact check him kind of in real time, or as close to real time as you can on the radio. So his broadcast ends, and then they have somebody come on right after to say, I'm very sorry, but Father Coughlin misled you, and here are the things that he said that are not true. So you see this effort to fact check within the bounds of the medium. You see them try to eventually make him pre-submit his his speeches, his weekly addresses. He reacts very negatively to that, and so do some of his fans. They begin to protest outside of the radio station. You see the government, President Roosevelt, trying as hard as possible not to touch this, because he doesn't want to be seen as interfering with a prominent critic, because Coughlin is very critical of him. Ultimately, then you see the rise of these groups like Institute for Propaganda Analysis, which are putting out pamphlets both in middle and high school, and then also in kind of community centers. So you see them trying to go through this, let's teach people to recognize fascist rhetoric. They annotate his speeches so that people can see these tropes alongside what he says, and they use little emoji to do it. It's actually quite cute. And then ultimately what winds up happening, though, and this is the part where you realize that it's, you know, it's not just a technological or educational problem. His own people kind of begin to come for him, right? The Catholic Church, his superiors begin to say, like, you can't do this anymore. And so he begins to experience some consequences in the form of his own group, if you will, beginning to push back and say, like, that's it, you're done. So it's not the most satisfying story, I think, because it highlights the complexity of the problem. It highlights that it has happened in other moments and mediums. It reinforces, I think, that through line that we are not the first, community or people around who have experienced this adaptation period where people are trying to figure out what to do within the confines of a communication medium. But it is that piece where the social cost of his own people becoming frustrated and saying and beginning to put boundaries on his behavior. That's the piece where I don't know how we get there.
Right. I'm like working in my mind through like, okay, how are these things going to work today? And of course,
Right.
unfortunately, history is not a straight line. It's not going to give us those exact answers. Can you tell us a little bit about how has your book been received? And of course, like part of your story is the ways people have tried to delegitimize you and your work. So how has it been received overall? And has that been part of the process of even the reception of the book?
So I think a lot of things, I've been doing a lot of podcasts, which has been very fun. It's always interesting to see what people pick up on, what they want to talk about. Sometimes they connect it to their own work, which always makes me excited because then I feel like I get to then it's more of a conversation as opposed to, just finding ways to apply the principles to other areas. A lot of people think about, I get emails from people who say that it helped them understand, why they feel like members of their family are no longer reachable, no longer living in the same universe. So that idea of, I get emails from people who say things like, "Oh, I didn't realize how influencers got paid. Nobody ever really explained that." I get people who are interested in the historical parallels. I actually occasionally get emails from relatives of some of the theorists who I mentioned in the book, which is very cool. As far as the challenges piece, as far as the ways that, the less favorable engagements, I've actually been very, very surprised. I had a lovely review from National Review, which started with something along the lines of, Renee DiResta is actively trying to alienate her conservative readers, read her book anyway. And then it was a lovely review, actually, and the guy sent me a beautiful note, and and we had a very interesting conversation. But it was sort of a what was interesting to me about it was I actually thought I had kind of bent over backwards to not alienate, and so it was sort of funny to see it framed like that right up at the top. But I've had a lot of interesting conversations and debates that have been very refreshing, including with people who are more adjacent to the conspiracy theories about my work. And so I have found it quite like, I don't know, validating is the word, but cathartic maybe, to actually go on some of those podcasts and debate the issues around, okay, if this is the diagnosis, how do we think about content moderation? How do we think about content curation? To actually have the conversations about what should social media look like with people who have different views than I do. And as long as that's coming from a place of good faith, I usually find those debates quite fun, actually. I feel like it's nice to have that challenge in a place where the audience can listen and hear these different perspectives represented. And I actually get usually some, again, like pretty nice notes, actually. So it's been much more positive than I expected when I first put it out.
That's great. Yeah, I was even talking to my doc students last night. I was like, it's healthy sometimes to read things or talk to people who don't see the world the same way as you, right? It allows opportunities to understand your own ideas even better and figure them out. So it's wonderful. All right, so I want to finish with this question again, which is an educational question. So one challenge we have in education is that K-12 schools and higher education have kind of been slow to institutionalize media literacy education with like classes, programs, or degrees. So from your experience, like, do you have any suggestions? What are different spaces where media literacy education could take place, or what approaches have you found most effective?
Yeah, so I think building on the idea of things like the Institute for Propaganda Analysis, that was almost like a civil society pseudo, partially academic. There were academics in it, but initiative. And I think that those grassroots initiatives, community workshops, after-school programs, efforts run by nonprofits are really excellent ways to create community and to make the experience enjoyable. So it doesn't feel like a thing that you only learn in a classroom. I think older folks are a particularly important group to connect with. What we see in a lot of the research we do on understanding generative AI abuse, a lot of that kind of manipulation that's happening in that space is targeting older people, scams, and people selling products that don't exist with an AI image, these sorts of things. Teaching older people in particular how to be attuned to technological shifts, to media shifts is very, very important. I think outside of formal education, I've been really encouraged to see so many creators and influencers who get involved in demystifying digital manipulation or teaching critical thinking skills. They have massive audiences, and they're also very, very good storytellers themselves. They're very engaging. They create the kind of content that can be very shareable and, again, very fun. You know, you're consuming it on TikTok in your spare time, not in your classroom. And then finally, I think the simulated, the games that are starting to come out. I know my friend Mike Masnick has one on how to be a content moderator on social media. And this sounds very silly, but by actually putting that in, that experience in people's hands, you're showing them what it's like to actually have to make a determination about what content to surface, what kind of sources to consider authoritative, what happens to your social media platform if you don't do any of that, or what happens when decisions are made that all of your users hate, or that the government hates. How do you balance those trade-offs? So I think that there's some really entertaining games that are starting to come out in the space too, that are things that you're seeing people just go and play in their spare time also, as opposed to, again, the more traditional classroom learning.
Well, thank you not only for spending some time talking to us, but for all the work you've been doing for so long. I know I've appreciated, and I know the larger NAMLE community does too. So thank you again.
Thank you,
so
Renee.
much.
This is just on my desk. Legitimately. Thank you for your work. Thank you, Dan, for all those great questions. It was so great to have you, Renee. Congratulations on this book. It's truly phenomenal. So glad we could honor it.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all the award winners tonight. Thank you all for being here. What a wonderful evening for our community. I wanted to remind you that tomorrow is our final day of the 10th anniversary of US Media Literacy Week. You can still register, though, to get access to recordings and resources and other events hosted by our community. I want to thank our sponsors for their support for our work. And as we come to the end of Media Literacy Week, we also wanted to share that our call for proposals for our annual professional development conference is now open. The conference will take place next July 11th and 12th, 2025, and it's entirely virtual. We can't wait to read through all of your amazing proposals. So thank you again, everyone. Happy Media Literacy Week. Have a wonderful night.